Good, good morning. I want to ask you straight up, what is it that you're teaching your DNA? And it's a weird question, right? But did you know that our DNA is programmed by our thoughts, our feelings, and our intentions? So what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and what we're experiencing, and what we're putting out there into the universe is in direct reflection of how we are manipulating our DNA. And our DNA changes. Yes, it changes. I remember having, way back when I was a massage therapist, and I was working in a little center and hiring a room from a psychologist. And I remember having almost like an argument with this woman because I said, you can change your DNA. And she was saying, no, you can't. It's genetic, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, her husband was into science and everything. And the next day she came and apologized to me because she had gone in and asked him. And he said, yes, you can change your DNA. Now, genetics is a different thing, right? I can't go and change my hair color unless I buy a bottle of whatever or go to the hairdresser. Genetics is a different thing. However, we manipulate the codes within our DNA. And the codes within our DNA are a very interesting thing because the codes within our DNA, people say that the codes within our DNA are actually the Akashic records, right? I'm not sure if you've heard that before or not. And let me know in the chat if you've heard that before. Because all of our past lives, all of the generational history, so how our parents were feeling, what their thoughts were like, what trauma responses they had and triggers they had from their parents and their parents' parents and so on and so forth, right? Now, I want you to stop for a moment. Let's pause. Is one thing to say that, and I paused right on 222. That was so cool. Let's pause and think about what the generations prior in our family would have experienced. Because even just in our generation, there was such a big generational gap, and they talk about the generational gap. Now that's the measurement of consciousness, not time. Because from one generation to another, I remember my mum saying there wasn't parenting books back in her day. She used to talk about one book that came out by Dr. Spock, and I seriously thought she was talking about Star Trek and that she was making something up. And it was in my 30s that I found out there was some guy called Dr. Spock that brought out some sort of kids book, like parenting book. But prior to that, there was no information overload or information gathering. It was all based on how you were parented and how your parents were parented and so on and so forth. So just thinking about what our, like even just 2 generations ago, there was wars, and even one generation ago, right? And this is in our culture. Like I'm only talking about being in Australia, and I mean that's not even as I say that, there's people that are out there in war right now, right? Like Australians that are overseas that are it's just crazy. It's crazy to think of the different experiences that people are having right this moment. But also, as we go along in our generational experience, what it was like to be through a recession or, a war. And so the traumas would have been locked in. So the thoughts, the feelings, and the intentions that they were having have been locked in to our DNA and passed from one person to another. Because I remember when I had that moment of clarity, you know, you just have this thought that I had this thought. I don't know if it's just me, and sometimes I feel like I have weird things. And that's one of the reasons Tim loves me. But I had this thought, you know, you hear that after a certain period of time, after a certain period of days or whatever, your DNA replicates or cells replicate, and the cell means the information replicates. I had it in my head that a cell would just replicate, and you know, you just think something but you don't realize it. That for some reason I thought that a cell would just replicate, and I didn't consider that if it was an unhealthy cell, that it would replicate another unhealthy cell. For some reason I thought it would just be a healthy cell. I don't know why. And so when you think about it, if your DNA has got all of that information in, it's passed from one person to another. And one of the things I love doing is the fact that you can look at this from a science place, but you can also look at it from ancient texts as well. In the Bible it says the sins of the father will be passed on from 7 generations, right? Well, this is the stuff that's in our DNA. And so our DNA is holding all of this information, and how you feel, what you intend, and your thoughts are making a difference to the extent of what's happening within your body. And I want to say something that you might have considered. It's not our mind that is manifesting. Our manifestations come from our nervous system. Let that sink in for a moment. So our manifestation doesn't come from our mind. Our manifestation comes from our nervous system. Now, I want to share something that I learned years ago. I got right into DNA. I got into all of the science stuff in my, early 30s. I really loved all of the quantum physics and epigenetics, and I was into string theory and all sorts of crazy stuff. I remember a science experiment that they did with DNA, and they were able to isolate this part of this DNA out of a person, and they put it into a vacuumed room, right? So I don't know how it even, I think I remembered at the time, but they've got this DNA that's got nothing influencing it whatsoever. And they put the DNA in one room, and they put the participant that had the DNA, that they took the DNA from, into another room with a TV screen. And they showed the participant quick flashes of different scenes. And sometimes those scenes were negative scenes, and sometimes they were positive scenes. And what they noticed, and it happened in real time, there was no delay, that when the participants saw the negative scenes, the DNA would collapse and would shorten. And when the participant was seeing positive scenes, the DNA would spread out and would become elongated. Now, what does that mean? If you've got DNA that's really compressed, the information that it needs to carry from one ladder to the other, or whatever you call them, I can't think of what they're called now, that information doesn't have room to be able to move. Whereas when a DNA is in its relaxed state and it's elongated, it's got plenty of room to move and have that electrical charge go through and create information, and flow through in a more coherent way, right? So what they did was they then got that DNA and took it overseas, somewhere completely different far, far away, and they did the same experiment again. And of course, what happened? Real time, no change in time, space. As the participant had the reaction, the DNA had the reaction at the same time. And when they got better and better at the research, they recognized that what started happening was the participant's DNA and body response would actually, and they were random images, would actually respond microseconds before the image was actually on the screen. So the energy between the screen and what was coming onto the screen and the reaction of the person was happening just prior. So the imagery was there and the body was reacting before the eyes could actually register the information. So what they came to was that we are in a big soup of consciousness, right? There's this big field of energy that we are all part of and that we are responding to in real time. There is no, what's the word for it? There is no delay. There is no delay within the reaction because we are part of this consciousness. Like, of course, that makes sense, right? So when you consider this is not woo stuff, right? This is all about biology. Our DNA responds to frequency. It responds to frequency. Our cells literally open and contract based on the emotional instructions that we're sending it. So I want that to sink in because that's all mind stuff. Because I want you to consider where you're at in your life at the moment. If you're single, if you're in a relationship that isn't a healthy relationship, what are your beliefs around that? If you're in a good relationship, right? What are your beliefs? I remember I was talking to Tim about this last night. Before we met, I had to clean up a lot of my own boundaries. I'm actually just about to create a new program. And so we were discussing the layers of what I'm doing to build out this program, because it's going to be a 6-month container and it's going to incorporate some of the old stuff that I have had before. Like my very first course that I ever created was like just about 5-6 years ago. It's called Awaken the Lioness. And it was my first time, guys, right? It was my first time. Who knows what Awaken the Lioness actually means, right? You can apostolate, if that's the word. I don't know how to say that word, but I know what I'm talking about. So I hope you know what I'm talking about. You know, you can theorize what Awaken the Lioness actually means. However, it's not specific enough. And what that actual course created is, well, what it's about, it's my signature experience. There's things that I created way back when I first started doing all of this, and the 3 breaths is one of them, and the other one is the 3 powers. And so they're the basis of the Awaken the Lioness, but there's also stuff about boundaries in there. There's stuff about communication, your personality style, you know, your love language. All of those things are in that course. And it's outdated, in my opinion. In fact, it's really interesting because so many of my clients say it's like a a prerequisite to going into my conscious creator circle, because it's got so much depth, and I made them so many years between, and conscious creator was when I actually learnt recoding. And funnily enough, I just love the way the universe works, and following the white rabbit means that you get these things all link in, because it was all about creating, even though I didn't realize it at the time. So that needs to be cleaned up, and as I'm cleaning that up, I want to bring it into a more tailored understanding of relationships in general. And so as I was doing that, as I'm thinking that and feeling into it, and what got me to where I am to be in this relationship that's so beautiful, and how did I get to this place to be supported and supporting in such an amazing relationship. So I've been pulling all of those little steps down and analyzing them. And so one of the things that we were talking about last night is boundaries, right? And also thought patterns. And I was saying to Tim, the last one that really was the kicker was that last relationship, which was, only a couple of months. I was dating a guy a few suburbs down, like an hour and a half down south. And the realization of my two conflicting belief systems that were internal, one that, I wanted to be in a relationship where I was the sole person, that my man loved me, and didn't have eyes for anyone else. And then this other one, that as a spiritual woman, I should let my man, or I should be able to love everyone, and have no issues with my man loving everyone, and all of these things. And they were really conflicting. And so that was, for me, my own boundaries and understanding of two conflicting beliefs that I had to clean up. And it was only a couple of months later, maybe even a month actually, that I met Tim. And so these are the things, because my nervous system was out of alignment internally, right? I had to have an emotional baseline that was conducive to actually be in the right frequency to call in this type of love. So when we shift from feelings of fear or doubt or confusion, and into safety, into certainty, into embodiment, our DNA activates a completely different field around us, right? And that's when alignment, synchronicities, and soulmate energy start finding you effortlessly. We've got to stop thinking our way into love. We've just got to stop it, because love is a frequency, and frequencies are programmable. It's the emotional code that we're transmitting I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by people messaging me. It's that time of the day. It's the emotional code we're transmitting, like that actually changes the entire trajectory of our relationships. Now, in saying all of that, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing my last event for the year, and it's the first event that I'm charging for it, because I'm doing a recode. It's $33, guys, right? $33 to have a recode. And what we're doing is we're clearing soul contracts. And that is the stuff that you may have had a contract with yourself, right? A contract with yourself about a certain belief system, a certain, I'm not going to fall in love because it hurts, because you were 5 years old and you fell in love with some kid in the playground and he hurt your feelings, right? And your 5-year-old said, I'm not going to fall in love again, like it can be that simple, guys. It really can. Or you've got some sort of contract with your parents, like I won't shine more brightly than you. I will make sure that that I'll dim my light so that you can shine brighter than myself, and so you play small so that, your mum can shine brighter than you, or, your father, you can be proud of your father, whatever it is. There's so many contracts that we have. And so tomorrow night is our Boundaries of Love Soul Contract Edition, where we are going to be working at releasing these contracts. And what that means is, because I often have people go into fear, does that mean I won't be able to see that person at Christmas time? Like, what does that mean? It means that frequency that we're talking about, that shift in your energy, because now you don't have that limiting bond with that person anymore. What happens is the energy between you and them are completely different. I remember the time that this happened in a past life regression that I had with Carly. And, well, I didn't have it with Carly. It was late at night. I was at my mentor's house. We did a session. The kids are asleep. And it was really, really interesting because I was still in that place of not really believing in any of it. However, what happened was, now Carly was, I think she was about 6, maybe she was about 5. Anyway, very young. And she used to wake up every morning with clockwork, and she would always come in and wake me up. She could never let me sleep in. It was annoying. And we did this session, and in the session, in the regression, something shifted. Like it was me and Carly and a past life that we had had. And we came to a new revelation, and we shifted energy between the two of us through. I think maybe I might have killed her in the past life. If actually I did, I beat her with a broom. Yeah, not something that you really want to commit to, share. But anyway, I beat her with a broom. I dealt with it myself. I went to sleep, and we were staying in my mentor's house, and I was in a loft. And I woke up the next morning to hear Carly in somebody else's house, right? Now, she's very shy. She doesn't like being around people, and she doesn't like new environments and things like that. She didn't at the time. And I woke up to her quietly walking down the stairs. And within a couple of minutes, I heard her quietly put the organ on and start playing the electric organ. And it just blew my mind. And when I did wake up or get up, I looked at Carly and I could see, and she knew it too, but she didn't know how to comprehend it. We both looked at each other and knew that there was some sort of veil that had lifted between the two of us. And it was such a beautiful moment between mother and daughter. And so we are going to have, as this last event, so not only are we in December, well, we're in a 9 year, so we're in a completion year. It's a 9-year cycle. We're completing a 9-year cycle, and next year is the start of another 9-year cycle. So what a perfect time to clear contracts and to shift the energy between you and somebody that you know you're in a contract with, and you just want to get it sorted out and, you know, released, so that you feel more of yourself and you can let them feel more of yourself. You don't have to have this conflicting energy between the two of you anymore. So it's tomorrow night. DM me or just put in soul or contract or something into the comments. We'll see it and we'll send you the link. And it is, we've had a couple of people book in and say they can't make the live because of XYZ. There is a replay, and you will get the replay afterwards as well. So and recodes work because they're not based on time and space. When I'm doing a recode, I'm tuning into everyone that's on the recode, whether they're in the future or not. And one of the things that's really cool about recodes is that the more people watch it, the more the energy accumulates and it becomes more powerful. So it's really cool. So be aware of what it is that you are teaching and sharing and inputting into your DNA, and think positive thoughts, relax that nervous system, and I will catch you next week.